defending your brand against ransomware attacks. I'm going to give you a little bio on Sidney. Very, very nice gentleman. Sidney has worked in IT for over 20 years. He owns a successful managed IT services company called Sid Networks. Makes sense. I love it. In addition to managed IT services, Sid Networks offers IT consulting, network design, and some cybersecurity solutions, which we all need desperately. The company serves small and medium-sized businesses in the Tyler area. From the time computers were available, Sidney became interested in learning about how they work. He was self-taught for many years, reading any information he could on computers, servers, and small business networks. He obtained an associate degree in system administration from TJC. In 2015, he opened Sid Networks and has continued to be successful in large part because of the company's commitment to communication and customer service, which is imperative. Sidney is married to Sidney Collum, who is his biggest supporter. I love that. He has 4 children and 4 grandchildren. He was born and raised in Tyler, Texas. Sidney loves shooting sporting clays, spending time with his family, and fishing. Let me introduce you to Sidney Collum.
Thank you, Michelle. I just hit the arrow.
There you go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. Guessing everybody knows what ransomware is. Hopefully nobody's been a victim. We see it all the time. People calling us asking what do we do. According to some of the statistics that we looked up, 1 out of 5 businesses gets hit with this, unfortunately. Small business really seems to be very susceptible. Oftentimes, they do not pay for the tools that they need. When I pick up a new customer, I find all kinds of gaps in their network security with their some of the tools that we'll be going over today. You can see it here, it's highlighted. Email protection, firewall, antivirus, backup solutions. Those are all very key into protecting your network. The very first one, email protection spam filter. A lot of you, if you're medical or financial, or if you want cyber insurance, that's a checkbox you got to have. That's a key component. Most of your spyware comes through your email. And it starts out with something like Amazon, Microsoft, what's the other one? It'll always be eBay. That's another one that got a customer recently. They prey on your fears. They get you to call them. And then they get you to let them in your computer. Recently, we had a neighbor. She's not dumb. They preyed on her fears because she got a pop-up ad on her computer. And she called them because, it's Microsoft, right? So she calls them. They get in her computer, get her on the phone, and they talk her into going to the bank, taking out $5,000, going to a Western Union machine and feeding it in because they're going to fix something. And then they tried to talk her into going to the other bank where their joint account was and take money out of it and wire it to him. And this money, once it goes into the machine, it is gone. It goes overseas. You are not getting it back. Your banks, mortgage companies, I'm kind of getting off track here a little bit. This is more of a public service announcement. But this is a level of fraud that rakes in billions of dollars every year. Organized crime is behind it. They're well funded. They're well trained and educated. It's not the kiddie hacker sitting in mom's house doing this anymore. Those days are long gone. Yes, they are professionals.
You're global.
Yes. I've talked to some law enforcement agencies, and the problem with so many cases, like our local DPS, they got the state. Anything that goes over state lines, they can't touch it. A lot of this, like you just said, it's not here. It's going to be in a country that is not friendly with the U.S. Those guys over there, they know that guy is doing something bad, but he's not violating any of their laws, so they don't bother them. And some of the I've hit this years ago in a Reader's Digest article. These guys, they've got a regular job, they punch a time clock, they have health benefits, time off, vacation, and people in that town know exactly what the employees there do, but they are taking money from, quote, rich Europeans and Americans, and who cares because they're poor. It's Robin Hood. So, and they're not violating any local laws, so they're left alone. And I know there's lots of agencies that are trying to get cooperation to shut these places down, and they do have some success. But I have, in my career of watching it become, before it was, you heard about them, it happened to them. Well, now it's happening to all of us. There are companies out there that these guys target. They're the 800-pound gorilla. They want to get in there, and so they focus resources to get in there. But guys like all of us sitting in this room, we're just kind of a drive-by. They might just happen to get one of us. And like my neighbor, payday, he got $5,000 for talking on the phone to somebody and preying on their fears. And she feels horrible that she fell for it. I had another customer whose wife fell for it, and I got $40,000 from them. She sent him $40,000. And here in a little bit, I'll talk about training. One of the things here, anybody know what Know Before is? Know Before is a training program, because a lot of times everybody's going to talk to you about training your end users. The more you know, the better off you should be. But one of my customers, their employee, who always scored very highly on the Know Before training, always did great, never had a problem. He got an email that his, what was it? Bitcoin. There was an error with his Bitcoin account. So he calls the bad guy. Bad guy gets him on the phone, talks him through removing our program to protect him, installing that guy's program so he could get into his work computer. Then they logged into the Bitcoin account. That guy transferred all of his Bitcoins out somewhere else and then told him, thank you very much, have a nice day.
He transferred every bit.
Every bit of it. All the coins are gone. My point in telling you these examples is it can happen to highly educated people, and it happens to dumb people. It's just, you sit back and you're like, oh my God, how did you fall for this? And the only thing I can think of, I read a book years ago from David Mitnick. He was a high-profile hacker way back before hacking was a thing. And he got the Secret Service, the FBI, they were chasing him all over the country. They finally found him, and they put him in jail for a long time. While he was in jail, he wrote a couple of books. And this has been 20 years ago. And he is talking about simple things like trying to gain access to a network because somebody had some program. And for him, it wasn't about profit. It was an ego thing. He wanted to get into the network because they had some program that he thought was neat, and he wanted to get a copy of it. Yes, Kevin Mitnick, thank you. I said David, didn't I? I think I did. It's Kevin Mitnick. So Kevin could mimic the sounds of a touch-tone phone and hack the phone system. So as a condition of his incarceration, he was not allowed access to unsupervised phone access. But he would walk into a building carrying a heavy plant. What do you do when you see somebody with their arms full? You hold the dang door open and let them right into the secure access. It's like, come on into the secured area. And he would walk in and he would go place it somewhere without any challenges. He would plug in a device on any open network port like those right there. And then he's in. He'd go outside the building and he's over here and now he's working, trying to get in. Or he would call somebody on the phone. Hi, I'm Kevin from IT. I can't tell you how many times I've walked in when I worked for the city of Tyler. I'd walk into a department. We didn't have badges. We didn't have shirts. We had nothing. And I would just say, hi, I'm Sidney with Computer Service. Can I bang on your keyboard for a minute? Yep, sure. I want to go on break anyway. And they're gone. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know, if you're not sure, I'm going to get in the slide deck here in a minute. I've just got a lot of stories.
And the password is right there on a sticky note.
It's always under the keyboard or right here on the monitor. Don't do that either. Physical security is huge. If somebody can gain access to your server room or your PC, they got it. They can do anything with it. You hear the thing about don't pick up flash drives, stick them into your computer. There are people that play that game. They throw these things out in the parking lot and see who they can catch.
If people gotta be nosy to see what's on there.
Well, yeah, you're curious.
Yeah.
You're always curious. You never know. There might be some good pics on there,
Right.
but it's not worth it. Yes. So years ago, I was at Redmond at the Microsoft campus in a conference. There's IT guys from all over the U.S. that were there, and we were talking about security, exchange email servers, file servers, all these different tools and tricks, things we could do. One of the guys from Dublin, Ireland, he gets up and he starts speaking, and he says, how many of you been using the public computers out there in the lobby? There was a lot of guys that had gone over and used it. I mean, it's safe, right? It's in Microsoft. And that guy said, how many of you noticed the dongle that I placed in the back of it to capture passwords, keystrokes, basically? It's called a keylogger. I can see a lot of people in that room looking at each other like, oh, shit. Oh, no. Did I do that? Because they didn't look. So if you're in a bank, one of the big things they talk about is physical security. And they train their people, do not let somebody just walk in and access your computer or anything without clear identification. You know, I try to tell my customers all the time, if you get, we'll show you some pop-ups here in a minute, but if you get one of these, don't click on it. Don't call them. Call us. Let us evaluate it. Because as I'll show you, I guess I ought to get the thing going so I can show you these pop-ups, but they're so darn tricky. I had one get me on Apple. They sent me one. It was the Apple website. It was a duplicate. Perfect clone. And I typed my username and password in it, and it didn't give me the response that I expected, which immediately I was like, oh, I've just been had. And then I realized, I went to the real website and changed that password immediately. So it's really hard to tell. So let me jump forward. These are some of the services that Sid Networks offers. I've been going over the antivirus, the firewall. We put in SonicWall firewalls. They have a gateway antivirus solution built into them. When you click on a website, that content downloads to your PC. When you click on something, you have just authorized a download, basically. Any link on there. And sometimes what we don't know is there's a malicious link on that website. That's one layer of protection that we put in place. Hopefully, it's going to scan that content, and hopefully it will catch it before it gets to your desktop. If it doesn't, then we have desktop antivirus solutions in place. They also have your back. The problem that we're running into these days, the programs have evolved. And our traditional programs don't, like the antivirus and firewalls, they don't always catch everything. Or it catches it too late. So I'll talk about some other programs. The vulnerability scanning, that's big. If you have PCI compliance, like the BBB, you have to have your network scanned periodically. I think it's quarterly, isn't it? Yep. That's where there is a computer on the internet, it scans your firewall and looks for open doors. A lot of people, there's no open doors. It's a shut door. But if you have a camera system, that's the main one, camera systems. These days, it's called forwarding a port. So now we find this hacker will find that open door, and then they start running a list of known exploits against that open port to see if they can get a toehold. Years ago, we commonly used a program called RDP, or Remote Desktop Protocol. Everybody would tell you it was safe. And if you had a mobile workforce, we had a remote desktop server set up for you to remote into, and you would get all of your program. It was your desktop, and you got it remotely. So all of the data stayed at the company. There was nothing on the laptop to be stolen. It was good speed on the connection. It was great until it suddenly wasn't one day. Hackers found a way to hack RDP, a previously known secure protocol. It was no longer secure. And I had a customer whose server, I started getting alerts that day telling me a virus had been detected. Now, I get those periodically. So the first one, I was like, okay, that's probably benign. Somebody scanned something on the internet, tried to download something, it caught it, problem solved. But then I got two more. And then I noticed it was their remote desktop server. So then I got curious. I logged in, this server had already been hacked. They'd already compromised it, they'd created several user accounts, and they had full access. They were trying to download other programs that thank God, the virus program was catching and blocking. So then I went in the firewall, I closed that open door, which effectively shut down the whole sales department. But I had to let the ownership know what had happened. And then we had to completely change our method for using mobile Salesforce. So now we use VPNs. We still use RDP, but we secure it with VPNs. And if you ever get cybersecurity insurance, they don't want remote desktop open anymore. They want you to have VPNs in place. The cyber insurance, another thing that they're going to ask for is MFA, multi-factor authentication. Got to have it. Before we started enabling that, a lot of people use Microsoft 365. I've found it to be a wonderful program. I love it. Love the tools that they offer. The security is good if you follow their recommendations. They are the 800-pound gorilla that everybody's trying to attack. So if you do not have your account secured, it's just a matter of time until somebody compromises it. And they will set it up to where you don't know they're reading your email. They will send out emails as you, asking your mortgage broker, your financial guy to wire money someplace.
People call me and I'm like, I missed this call. I'm like, I never called you.
Mm-hmm.
Called, and I'm like, so what's the purpose of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. The text from the United States Postal Service saying that my address, that they need confirmation of my address and stuff. And I'm like,
That is not legit.
negative.
Yeah. Yep. We had a lady not too long ago. She got an email saying that something was wrong with her. It was some account. I can't remember what it was. They preyed on her fears. So she called them, get in her work computer. And everybody's telling her that's not legit. That's not legit. But she let them in and then ran to the bank. They took $300 out of her bank account. You're like, oh my gosh, how does this happen? They tried to get customer information too. This was at a local dealership.
Wow.
And I finally figured out how they got in, because she did not have permissions to install local programs. But they installed a program that would get around that. So we found out which one they used, and we blocked that one so that if somebody emailed her a link or she went to the website, whatever she tried to do, they could not access that site. It would be blocked. And all that, if that happens to you, that's where your cyber insurance comes in. And people are going to start asking you questions about your security posture. What did you have? What check boxes can you check off? Because if you can't check them all off, they're probably not going to pay if they can get out of it. A managed SOC. So that's a security operations center. These guys work 24 hours a day monitoring alerts. I can't imagine what could be more boring, but that's their job. They're watching a screen, looking for an email, but SentinelOne is a product that we use. It was purpose-built to detect this kind of mess that we're trying to fight against. They are the other 800-pound gorilla on the security side. There's others out there. That's just the one that we work with. Those guys monitor their software around the clock, just watching for anomalies, unexplained behavior on a PC. With that software, we can immediately cut the network connection. We can isolate it. So that way, theoretically, we're hoping to stop the infection. Because typically what happens when ransomware comes in a network, it spreads. It starts crawling your network. And typically you just start noticing your Word and Excel documents disappear. They'll disappear on the server. Any device it can find, it just starts locking them up. Obviously, we do hardware support. I can really summarize this page with, we try to do everything except web page design and custom programming. We try to be a turnkey solution. And if you need web page design, you might talk with this guy in the blue jacket here. He's really good at it. Are you still doing web page design, Don? Good, good. Let's see what else Jennifer's got for me. So we've talked about ransomware. We've talked about, they say 43% are aimed at SMBs. Mortgage companies, title companies, real estate brokers, anybody with financial access, they're a target, especially title companies. I had a realtor call me at dinner one Friday night. She has had an email account hacked. The title company's email account got hacked. An email was sent to the buyer of a $400,000 property. They had her wire her down payment to an account.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, that real estate broker's freaking out because she may have just lost a sale. The title company, they could be on the hook for this financial loss because they shouldn't have wired. There really should have been a phone call. I don't know if they warned their clients. Most of them now tell you, so if you're buying a house, do not wire money unless you've talked with the people, somebody you know and trust. Do not take any text or email at face value. Years ago, I had a customer, he got an email from his boss asking him to wire $50,000 to an account. He texted his boss, "Hey, I just got this email from you. Is this legit?" Boss didn't answer. That guy kept pressuring him. And he told me, he said, "This is not uncommon for the boss to do this. He'll move money around like that." And the guy on the other end already knew that because he had been reading the email. And they got him to transfer it. It took them, I think, 6 months. They got their money back because the bank did not follow their procedures either. They did not get verbal confirmation. That was the saving grace. These are some of the statistics that we found. Average cost of downtime is $126,000. Early in my career, I didn't always see people standing around not able to work as dollars, but I promise you, your bosses do. Ransoms, a lot of people pay those. I think the statistic there was like 37% actually pay the ransom. Of those that pay, they get maybe 65% of their data back. Here's some of our common entry points of where it comes in. And you see 67% is email. Those emails sure do look convincing.
Yes.
Very convincing. And I've got some more slides here that will give you some examples. Lack of cybersecurity training. I'm on the fence there. Because sometimes I think training is good. It might help. And then you got the guy that I told you about that he knows he's been trained, he did great. And then that one guy preyed on his fears and got him. A lot of people have weak passwords. And like we talked about earlier, you put it on your monitor, you put it on your keyboard. Anybody in the office knows where it's at. But it's amazing. Our computing power has greatly increased. These guys can brute force your password faster than ever before. And many of them will use a farm of computers. They hack and take ownership of computers all over the world. And they'll use them in concert. What is it? They harness that computing power of many computers to crunch numbers much quicker. So that lets them brute force passwords faster than ever before. That's why it goes back to the cyber and security guys. They want you to have a 14 to 16 character password, which even I think is nuts, but that's the why. It takes a lot longer to brute force one of those passwords. It takes years instead of a few seconds. Gullibility. That's what a lot of my stories have revolved around. Preying on your fears and somebody being gullible. I've had people with no degree to PhDs fall for these things. Has nothing to do with education. It's not, we're just people. They socially trick us. Then I talked about malicious websites. You click on an ad. You don't know if it's legit or not. That's why a lot of people try to block ads on websites because of you just never know. Those guys are selling ad space. They don't always check it out. They just give them a password to log in and post their content. And if somebody reports it, then they know. Here is one of those tricky emails. Now, most of you sitting here, other than maybe Jeff, would not know that's not a valid IP address. It looks legit. Looks like something you'd see on TV. They don't use real IP addresses either. They just make something up. But that link is hidden. But you don't, it looks very legit, but it's hidden. It masks that bit.ly address, which is malicious.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the first thing I'll look at is the email name.
Yeah.
Or the domain name.
Yep. The thing that gets me is a bunch of this stuff when it comes in on your phone, especially my iPhone. I don't know about an Android. It shows me what they want me to see. And so if I'm not sure, like if I got this one, I would be really, really curious. This one looks very legit. And I could see Microsoft sending me that just as a heads up. But it's not legit. I would have to get on my PC to make sure I could look at the URL fully and get more information than I can on my phone. But I will say, if you're in a company and you've got a Microsoft 365 account, just call your IT guy. Don't second guess it. Just call the IT guy, let them evaluate it. They will know. They can tell you. This is a good example of somebody using AI, ChatGPT. Because we all know foreigners don't know how to speak English real well. And that's where a lot of it's coming from. So we're looking for those misspelled words, grammatical errors. But if they start using AI, that takes all that out. So to me, it always comes back to if you've got an IT guy and you're not sure about something, ask them first. Just bring them in the loop. Like I told you before, I've always looked at, when I read that book from Kevin Mitnick so many years ago, he made the point of there's no keeping out a determined hacker. Your best line of defense is to put layers of defense in where he goes somewhere else that's easier. And I thought, well, I don't know a whole lot about hacking. I've never done hacking. I didn't want to be a hacker. But looking at it from my side of the fence, I can put layers in place. I can try to make it hard on that person. So I've always focused on prevention and then used my backup program as the end all be all if something got through. Our spam filter does a great job of quarantining any virus attachment. In fact, if it determines it's malicious, you can see it on your quarantine log, but it will not let you have it. You cannot release it. We also replace links because a lot of times they're sending you, like in that Amazon message, you saw there was a camouflaged link. These guys that we use, they've got a service that when you click on that link, they test the other end before they allow you to go there. If it's deemed malicious, blocks it. So that just again, another layer. Know before, and again, I'm just using that as an example. The federal government uses them. They really are really good, and Kevin Mitnick was involved with that company. They do have a great training program. I've had trouble though getting people to want to do it because it usually takes 10 to 20 minutes. And if you mess up, then you have additional training. And exactly. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to do it. Yeah. Vulnerability scans are a great tool to help identify those weaknesses because this is a white hat scanning tool. Because I promise you, for the last 20 years, there have been, they call them bots, crawling the internet looking for open doors. That's been going on forever. This does the same thing, but it looks at a specific target. Like I was mentioning about Michelle earlier, once a quarter, the BBB has a service. They scan this network from the outside, and they look, and they always find the camera system and say, oh, there's one device. That's all we see is the camera DVR. And we have to take a look at it and determine if it's benign or is it an actionable item. And that's what these things do, is they look for exploits. They don't exploit it. They just let you know we found a potential exploit. And you can take it one step further. We bring a device and we put it inside the network, plug it in, and then it sits there for about a day. And it crawls exploits inside the network. So if something gets past all these other layers, now they're attacking your PCs, and the first thing they look for is unpatched systems. So now we're back to one of the programs we use is the remote monitoring and management program. It does patch management. Every week we scan all the available systems on the network and we send out whatever the available Microsoft updates are. We do that over a weekend. Hopefully we don't mess up anybody because usually most people aren't working on the weekend unless you're at a dealership or a furniture store. So that's how we try to minimize our internal vulnerabilities, is through patch management. The Managed Security Operations Center, those programs run 24/7. If that computer's on, it's being monitored. If something slipped through, we've got a team of people watching for malicious activity. They can isolate that device, they can shut it down, and then we get notified. So what happens, I don't know if I should say if or when, it happens to you. Because at some point it may happen to you. either at home, at your place of business. It's amazing to me how many systems have been compromised. I looked up some examples. The city of Dallas, I would think they've got plenty of money, and they would spend some of it on IT. But their police and fire departments got hit with ransomware, and a lot of that data got copied out. They use the word exfiltrated, but they basically got a copy of that data. It affected 26,000 civilians with identity theft, and a bunch of them started having identity theft issues. And it cost the city $8.6 million in payments for services to the hack, all the IT specialists that they brought in, and then credit monitoring for all the potential victims. The Minneapolis public school system, they got hit. There was a $1 million ransom demanded, which they didn't pay. Confidential data was leaked on the dark web. It included sexual assault victims, medical records, discrimination complaints, social security numbers, and contact information of district employees. And again, I mean, these are not little businesses. They've got money to spend, and I can't help but wonder. It's like, did you have Chicken Littles in there saying this is going to happen, and they didn't spend the money? I don't know, but yeah, they find a way in. Yes, sir.
I served in the Navy until 2004.
Mhm.
For 2 years after that, I received a letter, starting 2006. I received a letter and I was attached to, this is the Navy,
Mhm.
the US Navy, and I was attached only to the Naval Hospital in Pensacola,
Mhm.
where I did some active duty time for 5 months. And just there, for 2 years, they had to send me a letter every month monitoring because their security of their network was compromised.
Oh,
It
wow.
was terrible. It was awful because they admitted all your information
Mhm.
was compromised. So
Yeah.
that means social security, and these are patients just from the hospital. So it was an incredible mess that was happening.
Mhm.
Incredible mess, but they,
Yeah.
because it was failure of protocol,
Yep.
they had to downplay as much as they possibly can because it could be a chaotic reaction.
Yes.
Because these people have high security. These are military officials.
Yeah.
Not me, I'm just a non-commissioned.
Yeah. I'm just always amazed at how this happens.
Like, the Navy.
Yep. You would think they'd have a backup of their backup of their backup,
Yeah.
but
And I mean, they released 285 million records off before.
It's crazy.
yeah.
They were collecting, they were finding on us to do it. So
Yeah. We, this kind of goes back to what we do. So if or when you get hit with this, if somebody calls you, hey, my files are disappearing, either yank the power cord, unplug it from the network. That's all under the word isolate. Get that thing off the network.
I had a lady in our office, we're an insurance agency, but she was trying to look up a value for an RV. So she could, was working up a quote for it and
Mhm.
clicked on the website and something funky happened and her screen, like, I can't remember what she said happened, but the same thing happened to her home computer. And she was like, the first thing I did was I turned it off and unplugged it.
That's perfect.
So that's good. And I called our security company and they monitored it for the next few weeks and sent us updates and everything. And just said, we haven't seen anything funky, so don't worry about it. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, that was one of the first things that she did, which I was grateful that, well, it's something that she had firsthand knowledge on what she needed to do because it happened to her at home.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one area of attack I have not mentioned. Another common thing is you get on a website, all of a sudden it's screeching at you, flashing. It will freak you out. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten phone calls from people and I can hear it in the background. It's a scam. You're not hacked. It's not Microsoft. It's not Apple. It is a scam. Turn your computer off. Reboot it. Whatever you got to do. Just don't click on anything on that page. Typically, when we come in to look at a system, we isolate it. That's a big thing. Try to isolate it. A lot of times, by the time I get called in, if they didn't call me in the initial phase, it's already spread. At that point, we're trying to determine, usually with ransomware, once it runs, it does its job and then it's gone. So far, I have not found a remaining infection. Not saying I won't, but as of today, usually there's no remaining infection. It's gone. It did its job. Then it's, what is it? We have programs that are called terminate. God, I'm forgetting my words. PSRs. This is not one of those. It just does its job. Then it's once and done. Once that's happened, if you've got good backups, you're fine. And typically that's the people that I've helped with this. We had good backups.
If ransomware is the fact that gets in there, does its job, and it disappears.
Yeah.
What's the opposite? Is it a Trojan that will come and stay and
Yes.
find opportunity until it's ready?
Some ransomware will come in and sit for a while.
Like a Trojan.
Yes. And then it'll execute to, they're just trying to extort money out of you at that point. Because for a little bit, they're going to want to copy all this data. All these records, man, they don't just copy that in just an hour or 10 minutes. It takes days to copy that much data. Yeah. The movies are wildly inaccurate. They'll copy that data out and then they'll extort you. Most of them that I'm seeing, they just come in, somebody clicks on something, and then it encrypts everything. Every PC, if you had a Word, Excel document, it'll break your web browser, your email programs. It's just time consuming to fix it all. And if we've got a good backup, then we just restore the server. I always recommend, if you've got a good backup and you can function without paying a ransom, don't give any money to those bad guys. Just they make money. That's the only thing that's perpetuating this, is the people that'll have to pay that ransom because they don't have a good backup. The main tool that we like is Datto. Datto appliance, they have, we use the appliances that they create a virtual image of your server, your desktop, whatever we're backing up. There's a virtual snapshot of that machine. They also have a built-in ransomware scanner. So theoretically, if it's working right and catching everything, if there's something like a Trojan laying there just waiting to run, it catches that during the backup process and we get alerted. I've not had that happen yet. The great thing about this is not its price, but the insurance it provides, the peace of mind it provides, is if your system gets hit and your server goes down, we're able to boot up that virtual copy that it created locally. And as far as your computers are concerned, server's back up and running. They don't know it's actually off. Once we get everything cleaned and back going again, then we switch back over to the physical hardware and bring the network back up. We did have one network that got taken down, and we did have to do a full restore. We wiped the server clean, and we restored it from the backup from the local appliance. It took us about an hour to get that back up. That particular business, we were able to get them back going again. Let me think. They got hit in the afternoon. We had them back up mid-morning by fixing the machines, restoring data, restoring the whole server. It took a bit. And fortunately, they only had about 25 27 PCs. But we were able to get everything recovered thanks to this backup solution. Their downtime was very, very minimal to what it could have been. So this is another slide, just kind of going back into layers of protection. There's no one single way to keep these guys out because they attack you socially, email, websites, phone calls, text messages. They're trying every way they can to get in. So we've tried to put layers in with the backup solution. That's the final stage. If they've gotten that far, they got you. We want to make sure we have all your data backed up. That's the only way we can recover. And the only way that I can see that some of these companies that we mentioned that got hit, they weren't backing everything up. They had gaps. Where we at on time? Still doing pretty good.
How do you feel about your article? Is
It
common.
is, and I'm not so certain that those are safe.
Right away. If you store
If I see one on the side of a building, I don't scan it just for the heck of it because I don't know what it's going to. But if I see it in a slide or something like this, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that was
Yep.
the first thing I was thinking of is someone just going in there and swapping one out that's sitting on a restaurant table
Mhm.
and having it go straight to somewhere else.
Yep.
And not, you know, use.
I know for years, Apple, or I should say Macintosh, they bragged on how secure their software was. Rightly so. I mean, 10, a little over 10 years ago, working with Windows 7, my default go-to, if somebody called me with a Windows 7 issue, is I scan it for spyware. It was horrible about getting drive-by downloads off websites. And it would just muck up the machine. It'd run slow program errors. So we'd scan it with a spyware scanner, install updates. 9 times out of 10, that fixed what was wrong with Windows 7. Macintosh, though, I mean, what market share do they have? Who cares? You know, you might mess up a church, a graphic artist, handful of people. I think at that time they had maybe 5 or 8% market share. That was it. Now everybody's got an Apple device. They're very prevalent. And now I am reading articles about they're finding exploits. Because used to I felt pretty safe about clicking on things with my phone. I wasn't too worried about it. Android, I read a lot of exploits about Android OS. But it's affecting everybody. Yes, ma'am.
So presidential elections are coming up. Marketing and videos and all that with AI.
Mm-hmm.
You know, gaining popularity. They're used to make the people's mouths move and make what they're saying. What different things should we be watchful?
That's a really good question. One I didn't even anticipate.
Sorry.
I mean, I do know that our elections are manipulated via social media. I know me, myself, if I read something, I'm much more inclined to believe it. Whereas my wife, being the smarter one, she looks for 2 other sources. I take whatever I read as face value. So I would, to answer your question, yeah, I think we do have to watch and verify. We're moving into a time, if you haven't heard it already, in IT, it's called zero trust. Zero trust.
I see it. In line with what her question was. The current, and I don't know if I shared it here, but the current president of the Philippines won purely from TikTok.
Oh,
From TikTok. He's the son of the blasted former dictator and
Mhm.
won again after 30 years of a gap in the dictatorship. He's back in power because he mobilized
Social
the
media.
internet, social media.
Yeah.
And one, they falsified the history.
Mhm.
The old man, the dictator was good. That's why I'm in America.
Wow.
Because it's, but I better say, but. It's really powerful.
Staters, like, I have a lot of, like, oh my gosh,
I don't use them. They're always listening.
but how? What
As
they-
yes.
what they do with it is listen to your house, like what you're saying, I mean,
Okay. So it was
I just had it, just to, an app.
Yeah, like a dot,
It's a Google, okay, Google Play. But
Yeah.
it's on my iPad, I have an iPad, so it's an app to it.
Mhm.
A credit card online or anything, any kind of subscription you ever on.
You're the
It's
product.
listening. It just heard you get the whole credit card number, your.
Mhm.
Where you going on vacation? You
So
be out of town.
Mhm.
It really is scary.
You're
I mean,
like,
but who are these people that are listening? I mean, like,
Go.
So it's all question, so
Yeah.
they know a lot about you, which makes you more vulnerable. So if the scammer does have all this data on you, they'll figure out what points are, or how to reach you emotionally, and that's when we make our mistakes, is when we act
Yeah.
emotionally. So the same thing with the AI stuff. I mean, I think we just all have to be very, very aware that just because you see somebody saying something on a video, they may not have said it at all.
Yeah,
You
well,
know?
they're,
So be careful about sharing stuff, please, because.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, think about what the actors and the screenwriters and all them, there's a bunch of them that, the actors are in on for because, they're able to just take one picture from you and then they can make an entire movie
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
You're like, well, hey, no, I need to get paid on that.
Yeah.
Just take that to the next level. And you can have somebody stand in front of the camera that's saying a bunch of things that's
Yeah.
not
What is
even,
it?
yeah.
There
It's
are
not even
already
what they're
videos
saying.
of Elon Musk and Trump on TikTok, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, you look really, really closely because.
It's all about-
Because you
spend so much time on
it.
It's so consuming.
Yeah. To kind of answer, so your devices are always listening, and it's really for marketing purposes. That's the intent that I've read. So years ago, Yeah. If I search for something or I start talking about a side-by-side or something to use in our shooting competition, the next thing I know, I'm getting bombarded with ads. I'm sure you guys have noticed the same thing. Yep. Years ago, I read a book, it was a marketing book, and they were talking about Target. They had algorithms that were so accurate. They knew a woman was pregnant before she did, based on her buying habits. They used a case study where this woman was going to Target and buying certain things, and then she started getting ads or coupons for baby products. She didn't even know she was pregnant. To me, that's scary.
Scare a little more about how much it's saying about like the vulnerability scans and everything like that. Your Ring cameras, your Wise cameras, those are all anything that's facing inward in your home. I would take those out because those are, if you don't have like a password and everything, anyone can hop on. If you've got a 3D printer, usually those have built-in camera. Those are secure. I mean, make sure.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I've
I was
hopped on,
gonna get one of those, right?
I've hopped on and I've seen, like, you could go on Showday and check out Blue Iris cameras specifically. You can check out job cameras. Like,
Really?
these are cameras that are facing, in your house. So facing down the driveway, get your license plate number, run that across like the park mobile data, find, oh, hey, it's in there. It belongs to this person, this person, this person.
You said zero trust.
Here, it's
So a lot of people put in camera systems. They never change the password. You would be amazed. There's a website out there that I found one time. It shows you all these unsecured camera systems all over the world, and you click on it. And they're all set with default passwords, and they have a port opened so you can get in and view all their cameras.
Joe has on one of those sites. And a lot of retail establishments have cameras indoors, obviously
Yep.
to make sure everything, to get, evidence or whatever, just keep track. But a lot of these retail establishments have their cameras where they're pointing right down at the computers and they can get all the passwords and credit card information because the
Yeah.
cameras are pointing right down behind the stacks.
Yep.
So.
We got a call and she turned around and I could see, I told her, hey, like this camera, if someone's shoulder surfing, they can check it out. But I could see her turn around and look at the camera. And I mean, it was a mall. It was like North Spark Mall or something like that. And
Oh, wow.
it was like,
Northwest Mall?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's it,
Oh.
everything I'm doing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Look, I got every electronic in my house.
In my bathroom, kitchen, on the Go in there and clean out. What's
Yeah.
sad, what I mentioned earlier, is if these scammers would put half the energy into doing good as they did into fighting, a real
Yeah.
job.
It's an
As
ego
to
thing.
doing this, it would be just such a beautiful.
Some of these guys, though, do not live in countries where they have the opportunities we do here. That is their opportunity, according to one article I
They
read.
need to come here because we need help.
Yep. Need to give them a visa.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. One last story. I had a customer last year. They kept noticing all these 800 charges on their phone bill, thousands of dollars. Their phone system got put in by their phone guy. He never changed the default password on all the voicemail boxes, and somehow somebody figured out a way to exploit that phone system. So don't leave default passwords on stuff,
You just never know.
because you can Google that information really easily.
So the postal service thing is a scam. I mean, I never clicked on it or
It
I
is.
just blocked it. But
It is.
Well, like you said, the Amazon, I called and they're like, why are y'all sending me emails with this? And they're like, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm that person.
Yeah.
I'm being watched at my house, but I call and.
Yep. Yeah.
Like you were saying that the one that's like it's been accessed from this location or something. How long the actual thing that and like it's like check out where your phone's been logged into iCloud, I mean, check out on something that you actually don't trust that one, but
Yeah.
go to the trusted source.
Yeah, I hate that. My wife has told me many times I'm way too trusting, because somebody can tell me something, and until they prove me wrong, I'll trust them. Well, where she's from, you don't trust anybody until they prove themselves trustworthy. And it's the same thing with IT. Just don't trust it.
I work in nursing homes, assisted living. And the trouble is, on the revert, there are more and more younger people getting into long-term care. I mean, I used to not see 50, 60 years old going to long-term facilities. Now they're there, and guess what?
Thanks for coming.
They
See you,
talk
Josh.
to me,
Guys for coming. Appreciate it.
They will come up to me and say, do you know anything how to fix this? And I look, everybody's patients and workers, porn sites, all the time, porn sites. I'm telling you, because now their phone does not work. They can't do this, or it keeps popping all this pop-ups.
Mhm.
And I have no clue. But yeah, is it still, I think porn is still #1 most opened up sites. A lot of people.
I used to see it occasionally in the workforce. I haven't seen it as much in the last few years.
Now everybody's opening up TikTok.
I was thinking
Yeah.
TikTok would be the number
God,
one. I mean,
yes.
like, everybody
Yeah.
knows TikTok.
And it's
China.
China.
Yeah.
Could it be from China?
Yeah, chopstick.
That was.
Anything else? Y'all good? Thank you. Thank you.